your powers are weak, old man.
You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
She's saying, in fact, Kevin was saying, okay, when you get into, into what I call the 92s. I just use the 92s as the example because Jay, you probably can, you can chime in on this, right? Because what's your highest degree, if you don't mind telling?
Just bachelor's, actually.
Is it bachelor? Did you go? Were you at a D1 school?
Yeah, I mean, after I graduated, my focus was to graduate Notre Dame and just go back home to Ghana. So
now Notre Dame is a D, what they call a D1 school, right? I think it's
a D1 / technically an aura of
Ivy, almost damn near Ivy League.
Yeah, Independence Ivy.
Yeah, you are independent Ivy, right? So basically, you're the top crust where you actually graduated from, right? So
yes,
you would be a 92, okay? And I don't know what field you're in, but saying are you corporate by any chance?
I studied political science.
Okay, what I'm saying is, do you work in like a corporate or high level government environment with white collar professionals?
Yeah, I actually used to work for the United Nations. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. In other words, you're a high level 92. You're a silver or gold collar worker. Okay.
Sure.
And basically, could you marry a chick from the hood? You could, right? The thing is, even
I could, but I never would.
You know what I'm saying? You never would. You wouldn't even. You probably have a hard time marrying a working class girl, because what you think about, what you do, what you would talk about is completely different than what her interests are, right? She's more interested in watching reality TV shows, okay, instead of eating popcorn, right? Or maybe having a cookout every now and then. And you would bore her to death, and vice versa, right?
True.
So there's a crowd of there's a group of women that are similar to you that you would actually deal with or would prefer to deal with. I'm not saying that if you had to settle for a chick, you would probably want her college educated with a bachelor's, preferably even if she didn't kind of make it, which are those that 89s that have become teachers or maybe nurses, but think they're college educated, they're well read, fairly well read. They think about something other than the mundane, and those are the kind of women that you would prefer to be with.
Absolutely.
Those are 92 women, and the same vice versa for the 92 women. And basically, looks have nothing to do with it, with all of that stuff. So she might be a 5 or a 6. You might I have to give up something. But the thing is, because of all the other stuff that come in with socioeconomically, you probably take her over a dime that's down in coming out of the projects. Minimum for Jay probably would be bachelor's level. You have to have at least a bachelor's degree, right, Jay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Minimum to be a 92 octane, it would be a bachelor's, right? And for somebody like Jay that's a 92, she probably would have to be in a field that's not working class, right, Jay?
No, definitely not working class. Exactly.
Okay, not working class, right? So we're talking about a 92 college graduate, and Jay probably would prefer at his level would prefer a master's or better. Masters are better. Go ahead.
A master's are better and has to make at least more than $1 million.
What I'm saying is you're the upper crust of because I'm listening to your background, and you're the upper crust of of this range. Okay,
there's nothing. BGS, there's nothing. This is what I try to tell guys, basically, like just gentlemen or just the brothers, basically. See, the buffoonish requests that the sisters in our community ask, you can basically ask them the same thing. But the difference is when we ask them, they definitely cannot offer that.
clip that you just heard was from the portion I did on the Roger Report. And the reason I clipped this piece and put it up front is because I wanted to give an example of what the quote-unquote high-value man is. Give you a shining example of what a high-value man is. And that brother would, in any circumstance, I don't care what color he is a high-value man, especially in the black community. That is basically what Kevin Samuels was actually talking about. If you want to know what it is, if you want to see, especially for a black man, high-value man, and in dictionary, look up that brother, right? He just broke it down to you about who he is, what he does, what his pedigree is, what his background is. They will qualify as a high-value man, as a upper crust high 92. There's lesser and greater high-value men. There's entry level and people that have basically excelled as far as what they call elite. I don't like using the word elite, but in this circumstance, that probably would qualify in this environment, in this country. So the reason that I'm doing this particular video is Steph Co and Pretty Privilege, right? Hopefully, I don't think I'm going to do another one. I think this is the third one. I think the third is a charm. And the only reason that I'm going to do it is because it's got my buddy's picture in it, because the two concepts are coming together. In fact, Kevin did a video, I think a week or so ago, on Pretty Privilege and High Value Men. But he did a video on Pretty Privilege. And I'm surprised we keep talking about this, because it's really unnecessary to talk about Pretty Privilege. Everybody knows what it is. It exists in all countries, all societies, okay? Everybody knows what it is. It exists in all forms of nature. Whether it's the brightly colored fish, whether it's the peacock, whether it's the lion's mane, whether whatever, right? There's a aesthetic that all creatures use to mate. And saying that it's part of the patriarchy or its socialization is that utter crap, right? I'm not going to try not to cuss during this video. Utter crap. Basically, there's nothing you can do about Pretty Privilege. It's existed since humans, crawled out of the trees. Before humans were actually humans, Pretty Privilege actually existed. Same thing with the high value man or high value male, whatever you want to call him, right? The biggest lion, the biggest gorilla, the smartest wolf, the leader of the pack is the high value male or the high value man. Who does the group look to? Who do you think? Who does the group think is valuable to be part of it? And that's the same thing as far as a hunting pack. What Kevin is describing as part of having a group and being valuable to the group, or highly valuable to a group of elite people or high value people, is a high value man. But she wants to take her shot at it. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to evaluate her take on Pretty Privilege and high value men and kind of break that down. And this will probably be one of the last videos I do. And I can't swear that I will not do another video on her because you know how you get triggered. So when you get triggered, you want to do something. But I think people are getting tired. So this probably will be it. But anyway, without further ado, Steph Co's take on Pretty Privilege versus High Value Man.
Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be discussing something that I saw on the internet a couple days ago, and it got me to thinking about my own messaging and like what I'm putting out and how different corners of the internet are interpreting that messaging, and how some are interpreting it completely incorrectly. So I received this picture via DM. I don't know exactly where it was posted, but I do know that it was out there, and I'm assuming that it's because when my video about Pretty Privilege was making the rounds, it was being picked up by a lot of different corners of the internet, and people had feelings about it. You had some people who were incredibly empathetic. You had some people who were incredibly anti, ranting about it and how I should never say these things, and these things are problematic. You had some people who were trying to scramble to see how they felt about it. There were lots and lots of different reactions, but this is one that really interests me, because not only because of the source of where it came from, and not only because I know why this was written, because I think there was like an Instagram live or something that happened and the video was discussed, but it's interesting to me because it's a take on the situation that shows that somewhere out there on the internet, people are very, very confused. So the first thing that I want to say up front is that the concept of having a privilege based on anything that is outside, whether it's body privilege, white privilege, or pretty privilege, is a superficial thing that has very, very real ramifications in everyday life.
Yeah, I think people got that. I don't think people misinterpreted what you were saying, because everybody knows what it is. So you describing it or you defining it doesn't mean anything, because everyone knows what it is. Everyone knows where they rank in pretty privilege, or any kind of privilege is well defined in a society. You know what it is. You know what it is when you see it. You know what it is when you encounter it, especially when it comes to female beauty. It's not hard. It's not rocket science. So people to get confused about it, people aren't confused about it. People just don't have your take on it. So you being the arbiter of pretty privilege, or the definer of pretty privilege, is incorrect. And you just were more honest about it than most people. That's all. About how it affects people that don't have the so-called pretty privilege.
Okay. However, the concept of a high value man can be superficial, but the origins of it and what it actually stands for is actually the opposite of that. Let me explain. So I didn't even really understand what a high value man was, or like why people were talking about this all of a sudden. I first heard about this term maybe like a year ago. And of course I started to see videos by the aforementioned person that I showed earlier. I started to see his videos around the internet. I started to see some ones that were really, really hard to watch as a woman. Just women get ripped apart and told why they need to lower their standards and this and that. And I'm not going to get into it because that's not what I want to do here. But I quickly decided, okay, whatever that content is, it's not for me. And from what I was gathering when it came to the discussion, high value seemed like another version of pick me. Does that make sense? So if you don't...
Now, we have been looking at her videos for the past couple of weeks, and you can all go all the way back to Derek Jackson's video, which is months ago, where she actually talks about high value men. She was actually using the term. So you're actually using a term that you didn't define or couldn't describe. Now, when you talk about Derek Jackson being a high value man or have a high value self, you weren't calling him a pick-me. Now, all of a sudden, because you don't like Kevin Samuels or what Kevin Samuels is actually describing high value man, which you really haven't even looked at the material to even know, because he actually did describe it. And it is an internal thing. Now, there's external markers that prove that you have attained high value, but being a high value man is internal, and being a high value man is not a pick me thing. In fact, being a high value man is not trying to get picked by women. So right off the bat, you're interpreting the way men see high value as high value man, and what Kevin is actually describing high value men, from the locus or the point of view of a female. Even though you knew what a high value man was to you 4 months ago, when you talk about Derek Jackson, and before that, because you used the term. So now all of a sudden you don't know what a high value man is. You got to go look it up. You didn't go look it up back then. I don't get it. Anyway, continuing.
No, there's this idea out there in the world that a pick-me is a person who's, and they usually just put it on women, but it's basically a person who wants to consistently flaunt how much better they are than everybody else, so than every other woman. People would classify pick-me's as somebody who, bragged about how they like to cook 3 meals a day for their hubby, and how they like to iron all his clothes, and how they are never over emotional, and how there's a whole bunch of content out there in the world, a whole bunch of, videos and things you can read about the concept.
Again, she's being disingenuous about a pick-me. Okay, women don't define themselves as a pick-me. This is women that want men to serve and don't like traditional women, calling those kind of women pick-me's, wanting to cook for their men, wanting to iron their clothes, wanting to serve their man, serve their husband as a reciprocal value for being a wife, which is wifely duties, which is anti-feminist. All of a sudden, these in the independent mind, especially independent-minded black women, call these kind of women pick-me's. Basically, what they call a pick-me is just a good old-fashioned woman that knows how to court and are successful with men. And basically, well, a lot of women are mad at these kind of women, so-called pick-me's, is because they're embarrassing the women trying to date. In other words, why should I marry you when there's a woman willing to do the wifely things that I need her to do, instead of this feminist partner stuff that's going on? So already, which is why this stuff is sometimes kind of triggering, is because she's basically showing her colors. You're a dark-skinned activist feminist, and it's starting to show, because that using an offensive term as a pick-me, and you're supposed to be emotionally intelligent. I think not. Anyway, continuing.
Of a pick-me. So when I started to see the term high-value man everywhere, I was like, that sounds like men who are pick-me's. Here's how I'm better. But then I did some research into what a high-value man actually is supposed to be. According to Google, there are 10 traits of a high-value man. Okay, so I love this particular article, and of course, while I'm reading it, it's up on the screen, but I'm actually researching it as I do this video. I'm looking at this again. So a high-value man is emotionally intelligent. He has a purpose. He takes care of himself. He has high self-esteem. He generates his own self-esteem. He is assertive. He knows power dynamics. He is honest to his own value system. He has a growth mindset. He takes responsibility. So when I saw that article, and when I was consistently looking online, like I didn't watch any YouTube videos about it because I'm scared, but I did read about it. And over again, the concept of a high value man was based on the man's mindset, and based on how he uses that mindset, which is a lot of positive thinking, how he can go out and make the world better for himself and other people around him. I love that.
Now, of the 10, I can rock with 9. The emotional intelligence is actually a female quality. And feminists always like to put female qualities in with men's attributes. Now, I've been saying for years that a man has to have a purpose and a mission. But the thing is, all those things make, all the 9 things, emotional intelligence is in, but the other 9 things is what attracts women to that man. But the thing is, what you're missing is that while that is internal, while all those things are internal, to get a man to a certain position, the proof of it has to be external.
I love that concept. I especially love when they talk about a high value man being emotionally intelligent. That is so important. What kind of makes me sad when I read that is a lot of the men that I see that ascribe to this and ascribe to this thinking and ascribe to, that corner of the internet where they talk about that and they boast about that, they don't really show emotional intelligence, because a lot of the times they spend their time tearing down women and trying to prove why they're so much better than women who would attempt to approach them. And honestly, just FYI, these are just things you can see. Like if you go to a comment section, if you watch a video, it's not a great place to be if you're a woman, which a lot of times is like a target for them that they're like attacking. And so for me, that's not emotional intelligence. And I know that may not be everybody's definition of a high value man, but when I saw that on that list, I was like, yes, I agree. So where is that? Why is there not more of that?
There's a good reason then why there's not more of the so-called emotional intelligence, because as far as a high value man, it's a factor, but it's not the main factor. It's not even the main factor to women, because most of the guys that are sufficiently emotionally intelligent for most women get put in the friend zone, and where the so-called alpha male or the high value man that does the other 9 things, especially are purpose driven or successful, make a lot of money, give them a lifestyle, are way more important. A woman getting a lifestyle is way more important than the emotional intelligence, because being emotionally intelligent makes you a simp. Those are not the men that these women are choosing. Even you said yourself, okay? The guys that you went with were more emotionally intelligent, but guess what? They weren't successful. They weren't driven. They weren't purposeful, okay? They weren't ambitious, okay? Even you said that emotional intelligence, even according to you, when you went into pretty privilege and the guys that you like, emotional intelligence was not high on that list, Woody. And all those women that do come over to Kevin Samuel's channel on a nightly basis, you never hear them talk about emotional intelligence when they actually talk about the kind of guys that they want. Never comes up. It's all the external stuff. Where he lives, what kind of job he has, what kind of money he makes, what kind of lifestyle he has, can he support you, all the external stuff. All that stuff is actually first. You women kill me. You only like emotional intelligence when you want to come over and get your feelings salved. But it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with a high value man. High value man you got dudes that are high value that are bastards, that are cold and calculating, that are rough and gruff and not emotionally intelligent. In fact, the old-fashioned father figure, husband, was not as emotionally intelligent, because guess what? They don't have to be. They're not taking care of babies. Logic is actually most readily necessary to be a high value man. Why I played the guy up front. Nothing was said about him being emotionally intelligent. Now, do you have to be part of your network? Yes, but that's not the first thing or the most important thing to being a high value man. So emotional intelligence, you're not going to see a whole bunch of emotional intelligence because it's not as important. Anyway, continuing.
Let me get back to my point. Comparing the two ideas is problematic because it implies that for a man, all it takes is having a positive mindset and making sure you make yourself to be the best you can be. And that self-work is comparable to a woman just being beautiful and receiving certain things because of that beauty. It's problematic because it completely ignores a patriarchal system that made it possible for men to pursue self-improvement and be considered as worthy by all, but for women to be initially considered only worthy if they look a certain way. To me, it's giving very much, this is true for me, but this is true for you. It's inherently unequal. Also,
of course it's unequal. It doesn't matter what system it's in. It could be in a matriarchal system. Matriarchal system works exactly the same way. Exactly the same way. The man is picked not just because of his looks. He's picked on the same criteria that women have always picked men, okay? Even you find more polygamy in a matriarchal system than you do in a patriarchal system. A patriarchal system is far more monogamous than the patriarchal system. A matriarchal system, we go visit an African matriarchy and find out exactly how women are picked, okay? If you go back 200 years, a lot of women were not picked solely on beauty. They were picked on the other things that make a wife. Think about it. The old patriarchal system, a woman was actually picked on how well she took care of her home, took care of her children, did the chores around the house, ran the house, and took care of him, okay? Which is external, which has nothing to do with her being born, her being pretty, because a pretty woman that's not worthy that cannot work or cannot do any chores or help that man wasn't picked. I don't care how pretty she was. She'd have to wait around for a rich guy that could actually afford her a lifestyle. So that's not part of a patriarchal system. The thing is, feminists always put different things or whatever they think they don't like on a patriarchal system, in fact, instead of finding out exactly how women were picked. Now, the very things that you put down as far as being a pick-me, which said a woman doing all the external things, for a man, that's valuable to a man, for a man to pick her or for a man to marry her, is exactly what you just railed against. Now, you were fawning all over Derek Jackson because of the way he looked and how hot he was. And women pick men for their looks just as much as men pick women for their looks. The only difference is that women are not designed to take care of a man. Go back and read the book, The Richer Sex. And you so-called feminists do not like the burden of performance. So inherently it's unequal because you guys want equity instead of equality. Equality means you get the outcome that you deserve. You get the outcome that you earn. Okay? Not just because you can make friends with people. The outcome that you earn. If you really wanted to be a man and be in a man's role, guess what you would be doing? You get a good-looking guy that's hot, and you take care of him. You pay for him. But you don't want that because you want to still be in a woman's role, but you want things to be equal and say that it's because of the patriarchy that this exists. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. This exists in all cultures. I don't care whether it's matriarchal or patriarchal. It exists in all cultures and always has. Anyway, continuing.
I want to say that a lot of times when people talk about a high value man, they really focus on that concept of value. And it's not just a metaphorical social currency in their minds, it's like a real currency. So I have seen, people take this label and apply it to really anybody that has money. For me, I'm guilty of this as well. I know I said it in my video that a lot of times I find myself only being the object of affection of men who don't try to move very far in life. And so as a result, they don't have a lot of resources. But I also did go back and say, for me, what matters most is vision. Because a man with vision and a man with real plans is a man who's never poor. And so to me, that's a high value man. But again, a lot of times what I see happening is people consider a high value man to be one that has a lot of money. And as a result, men with a lot of money tend to get away with a lot of terrible things because they're considered high value. They're given this better status in life. And clearly that's not fair, right?
At least she admitted it, okay? She admitted it. She stepped in it and tried to back out of it. Is that high value men or men with a lot of money or a lot of power tend to get away with a lot of things. Just like a good looking woman at 8, 9, or 10, she can get away with more. Why? Because she's pretty. Which is something you complained about in your last video, that they get away with more. They can just show up and they get things. They get privileges are given to them by people that want something from them. Like Donald Trump, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby. Those women didn't come there because they wanted to get taken advantage of. They wanted something. They were giving up something in exchange. High value men, guys with a lot of money, are valued by women, especially by women, because they're giving up something in exchange. You can get more in exchange for what you have, but with a man with money than a guy that's poor. Even you said that. You talk about vision. Come on, baby. Come on. Vision means that eventually that guy's going to get to that point where he's got a lot of money or a lot of success. That's what you were talking about. The only thing is that you can't get the guy that's already ready, the guy that already has it. You got to bank on the guy that has vision that can get it so you can get in on the ground floor. It's like buying stock cheap. You know what? It boggles my mind how women play with words. Okay, you're trying to lie by obfuscation. You're trying to bend the truth instead of just come flat out saying it. You just said what the truth was. You've done it in the past. I'm glad you at least recognize that you've done it in the past. That's how come money is an indicator of high value men. Why? Because it's something that's valuable to the people that are looking for these kind of guys, especially women. It's how come they have a flock of good looking women around them. Why? Because they're trying to get something in exchange, which is why Kevin calls these guys high value men, is because according to the dating realm, these are the guys that the majority of women want. There are some women that have their own money that would take a guy that doesn't have very much money. Shout out to Jeff Bezos' wife who married a math teacher. But hell, she's got $40 billion. She doesn't need his money. But she's a rare exception. Most women want a high value guy, a guy with money. And emotional intelligence be damned. Ask me how I know. Looks, money, status. That's the way it works in the male world. Looks, money, status. That sums up a high value man. You can put the components in, but if you go looks, money, status, we put those pieces in, and there's a value number that pops out. That's what women will actually go for. Emotional intelligence is not part of that equation, sweetie. Continuing.
And it's also not true. Just because a man has deep, deep pockets does not make him high value. In fact, there's a story recently on social media, and I'm only going to show the title of the story because the initial story did not name the race of the couple involved, and but yet when pictures came out about it, it had a black couple, and so I think that kind of makes black couples look bad, so I'm not going to show the picture that was included. I'm just going to show the title. So basically there was this couple, and they said they were going to go on vacation together. The woman was a teacher. She made $45,000 a year, which they just won't pay us. They won't pay teachers. And the man worked in IT. He made like $145,000 a year. He did some job where that's what he made. So he makes $100,000 a year more than her. They agree that they're going to go on this trip together, right? She takes a second job to be able to pay for the trip. And if you've already seen this on social media, if you saw it when it came out, that's fine. So she takes a second job to be able to pay for the trip, and they go down there together. And when they get there, his family is also there. And his family is also well off, I guess, because everything they wanted to do was super expensive and out of her budget. And so, like I said, if you saw the title, basically what happened is when they went down there, she ate 2 meals a day. She didn't do any excursions. She was just left to kind of walk around the island while he got to live his best life. They agreed that everything would be 50-50 up front, and he was not willing to extend any care and compassion or help to her. So this made a conversation explode online about what are the real responsibilities as far as what a couple owes each other, especially a couple that considers themselves to be a modern day couple where they're going to go 50-50. Like I said, I know a lot of people who would be like, if I'm going on a trip, I'm not paying for nothing. He's paying for the whole thing. But I do know it's also a very modern way of thinking, to say, okay, well, I'll try and pay my part. So what if somebody makes way more than the other person? Does that person still have to try and match you 50-50? Like where the issue raised a lot of just questions as far as how do you make sure something is fair when one person clearly out earns the other? But one thing that stuck out to me was that, number one, most people agreed that the guy in the situation was a demon from the pits of hell, and the woman should run as far from him as she can. And number two, whenever this guy would be in comment sections and people are ripping him apart, his response was, "You're right. I need to find someone who is worth what I'm worth. I need to find someone. She's not good enough for me." And so that's when this whole concept of a high value man scares me, because I don't think a lot of men are looking at it in a very intangible way. You know what I mean? Like in a very, I'm going to work on my self-improvement. I'm going to make sure that I am emotionally intelligent, that I do have a purpose, that I do take care of myself, that I do keep my self-esteem high. Instead, you have people that will say, well, I know because I have this and this material thing that I'm better than this and this and this type of woman that's out there, or this and this type of person. It's very pick-me energy, and I don't like it.
That notion of fair, that notion of equality pops up again, right? Now, if a man didn't have money and he had to take a second job and to go on a vacation, and he had to eat 2 meals a day while his mate, who's a female, went around and did all the other things and had her best life, and he couldn't afford it, nobody would feel sorry for him. They would say, hey, you picked the wrong woman, or you should have went on a vacation that you could afford. Nobody would expect her to bend down and actually pay for him. And I've talked to women that make a hell of a lot of money, a hell of a lot more money than I do, and they expect you to be able to afford your end. They don't expect to go out of budget to pay for you or pay for you to do anything. So when you talk about equality and equity and being fair, it's okay if it's coming out of the man's pocket. But all of a sudden when that man refuses to actually pay for it or give you the equality or the equity that you so rightfully asked for, now he's a demon from the pits of hell. And when he says that you're right. He should get a woman that's worth what he's worth. That can go 50-50. That can match him in salary, because every chick that comes on Kevin Samuels' podcast wanting a high value dude, some of those chicks make $150,000 a year, but they don't want to be with a guy making 40. That's emotionally intelligent. That's being with them. That's being side by side. When a lot of women have left those guys because he wasn't making that kind of money. But it's only fair. Equity and fairness and equality only counts when it's in a woman's favor. When it's not in their favor, all of a sudden they want the patriarchy. They want the old patriarchal rules. They want the man to pay for that woman and pay for everything. And what are they trading for? Now, she just said it. There's some women that said, if I'm going on a date or I'm going on vacation, he's going to pay for everything. Is that fair? Is that equal? Is that equality? Is that the burden of performance? No. In other words, this, and when it's obvious, she's full of it. She's just mad because her feelings are hurt. It's because men are demanding the same kind of value, dollar for dollar, that they have. But that's why a rich guy, a wealthy guy, is more preferred than a broke guy, even by you. Every woman that comes in is not saying, I take a guy making $20,000 a year, or a guy making less than I make, or a guy making a third of what I make. How many women you see out there doing that that are feminists and want to be equal? Doesn't happen. You don't like it because it hurts your feelings. That's all it is. Okay, that's all it is. Because I've never seen a dude with a whole lot of money, a millionaire, that didn't have a woman, or a woman looking for him. And the only guys that I know that have a hell of a lot of money, because I know at least 20 millionaires. And the last thing they need, the last thing that they're without, is a woman. As soon as a woman knows that he's got something, that he's got resources, trust and believe, there's a line. He can be the biggest douche on the planet. There's going to be a line of women out there trying to get with him. I've never seen a lonely millionaire, ever, in my life. Now, are there lonely female millionaires? Yes. Okay. There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of high value, so-called high value successful women that are lonely. Not so for men. There's always a woman looking to get his resources. It is what it is, but that's the way the world works. That's how come men with money as a marker are more valuable to women than men that don't have it, even the good looking ones. Anyway, continuing.
A whole issue also made me think about, what do I think of when I think of what a high value man is? And like I said, I love the list that I read off. I think that that's fantastic. But also I want to add a couple of things. So the first thing is, I think a high value man is compassionate. Like I said, when I released my video, there were a lot of different reactions. And I know that there's one guy out there, he made a reaction video. I didn't watch it because I have high blood pressure and I know how I am. So I was like, I'm not going to watch that, because in the thumbnail, he was laughing at me. You have a person who's really, really telling a story, and you have somebody who absolutely cannot empathize and cannot, be kind, and cannot see that she would have any validity to what she's saying. She's just a sad woman complaining on the internet. Ha ha ha, what a loser, right? And so I didn't want to see what he had to say. I just sort of wrote him off. I was like, that's a jerk, and that's what's going to happen. Later on, in my DMs, I get a message from a guy, and he says, hey, I watched your video and I thought it was really interesting. I have some people in my life that I know go through the same thing. How would you suggest I approach the conversation with them? I didn't even know what to do, honestly. So it took me a minute. And I think I responded back really fast because I have an Aries moon. Yeah, I responded before I was really ready, but I was so excited for anyone who knows this man. I was so excited because this is a person who, number one, is emotionally intelligent, and number two, is so compassionate. He knows. He may not experience this. He may know other people that don't experience it. But it's his job as a person who loves and cares for people who are going through it to try and understand their side. To me, that man is priceless.
Yeah, the man is priceless, but he's also in the friend zone. What if the guy is broke? What if the guy works for McDonald's? Okay. What if the guy works as a janitor at your school? Okay. Then he might be priceless. He might even be valuable. But the thing is, you're not going to date him. He's going to be a friend. Those guys get friend zoned all the time. In fact, A lot of these guys that are now high value men used to be that guy, that were emotionally intelligent. And guess how far it got them? Nowhere. It's like the ugly girl syndrome, okay? She might have a heart of gold and a great smile, but guess what? She's not going to get picked by the guy in the Porsche or the Mercedes and with the party and the home in Hollywood Hills. Same thing. Might be priceless. They might be even cute. But at the end of the day, they're going to get friend zoned. It's not the guy that you want. So stop it. He's not going to be a high value man. He might be priceless. He might be, like I said, he might be a companion, a buddy, but he's not going to be a high value man because as soon as Derek Jackson comes walking through that door, guess what you're going to do? You're going to drop your panties. You're going to roll with him. So stop it. Continuing.
So to me, yes, going back to this idea that being a high value man is really about what's in here and not so much about this, right? And so as a result, comparing being a high value man to the very superficial nature of just being seen as a pretty person and therefore you're worth all this better attention is not an equal comparison. However, I do have to agree with the fact that one of these will get you further and last longer. I absolutely do have to agree with that, because having that kind of a mindset and basically building the best life you see for yourself will get you much further than just trying to skate by on your looks. However, what I didn't like was it insinuated that the only thing a woman would have to offer to be able to get through in life would be her pretty privilege. Just as men can be high value, women can be high value as well. Anybody that is investing in themselves and building the best possible life they see for themselves is a person of incredible value. And so, yeah, I didn't like those two things being compared because it was like, well, they're not equal. It's not the same thing.
At least you got it right. In fact, he just said it wasn't the same thing. Okay, something that is like. Okay, that's what the key word in your teacher. Words are important. Like is not meaning the same thing. It's similar. Similar and equal are two different things. And what it is the outcomes are similar. A high value man and a pretty woman, the reason that they match is because they get similar outcomes as far as the world is concerned. But a good looking guy can get the similar outcome as a pretty privileged woman. They won't get as much money because women don't spend money on men. That is the way the world works. That's the bargain. That's the bargain that men and women make. So is it the same thing? No, it's not the same thing. Kevin never said it was the same thing, which is disingenuous to actually comment on a post before you actually see the content, because you have no clue what he meant or how he's going to compare the two. But I know how he's going to compare the two, because that's the currency that men and women have. Okay? Men are what? Protection, provision, and purpose, right? That's what women are looking for. Women are, as far as men are looking for in a woman that's going to make the woman valuable to him, is youth, looks, and fertility. That's the bargain. That is the nature's bargain that you have. You can't, those are sex roles that have been imprinted by evolution. Can't get past it. Now you can be in a matriarchy, you can be a patriarchy, but guess what? Those rules will still apply universally. They always have. So how come the chief, the biggest, the strongest, or the one that was smartest and can actually acquire the most wealth or most value as far as bringing in resources, was sought after by the women in the camp, and he would get 2 or 3 wives rather than one. And that's in a matriarchy or a matriarchal society. The Jewish religion is considered a matriarchal society. Guess what those women pick those men on? They don't pick poor guys because of their vision. They pick men with resources first. So it is not a patriarchal thing. It's not a matriarchal thing. It's a human thing. And when you understand that patriarchal, matriarchal is just a way of organizing people, and women have to sign on to the patriarchy for it to exist, because they get certain benefits, which you have alluded to in this particular video, that you actually want. The reason you want a guy with vision is not so that you can be the wife of a $45,000 a year teacher. You want that party in Hollywood. You want to be flown out. Now, are there women that will settle for a man because she's aligned with his purpose? Sure, but that's not the majority. That's not the first thing that women look for. And that guy with the Maserati in the big house, he's going to get picked first. Okay, there's going to be a line for him. There just will be. And when that guy that's making $45,000 as a teacher or $40,000 as a teacher, guess what? There's not going to be a whole big line for him. Okay, in fact, those guys wind up getting divorced. They do. Anyway, continuing.
It may produce the same result, but that's just a flaw of our patriarchal society. And that's only for the women who can buy in that way. Women like me who have to divest, who don't really benefit from that system. Oh, I'm a high value man. I'll give me a woman with pretty, like I don't fit there. I have to figure out other ways for making it. I have to develop myself in other ways. I have to do it a different way. And it's possible because, like I said in other videos, at the end of the day, the way that you look is not going to really keep you from your destiny. That was something that I saw that I wanted to comment on. It's a concept that I've wanted to comment on for a while. And I do think it can be extremely problematic, the way that it's being practiced and the way that it's being preached. But I also think that if it's looked at the right way, it's no different from like honest mentorship. And if it helps somebody be able to build the best idea they have of themselves, and I think that's great. But it should never be compared to pretty privilege, because one allows for a person to develop as an entire human being, and one is just, well, it's incredibly superficial and limiting, right, of somebody's self-worth. So the two, they don't equal out. Thanks for watching.
All right, yada, 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 yada. Can money keep you from getting to your destiny? Yes. Can money and position and cap your potential? Yes, it does. And it has nothing to do with a patriarchal system. Okay? That's the way it has been forever. In a patriarchal system, in a matriarchal system, there's a hierarchy and there's a cap. In fact, in this particular patriarchal system, or the equality system, we have it's far more fluid than it used to be. You know, a lot of people like her don't read history, and they don't understand history. Their vision of what the world is only goes back 40 years in America, okay? And they have never been to other societies where your destiny can be capped by money, by wealth, by resources, by the family that you're born into. Okay, so say that because you're born in a particular place, in a particular position, that you can be anything. The possibility exists because you're a human. But the thing is, the probability, which women don't focus on, is very, very low. There's very few people that make it from a 6-year-old digging up minerals in the Congo and becoming a billionaire or a millionaire, or even a normal person in the first world. The odds of that happening are extremely low. The odds of a poor kid making it in America and getting out of poverty or becoming very wealthy is low. Does a possibility exist? It does. But the odds of you getting there are low. And it's proven day after day after day after day by stats. And even it doesn't even matter what color you are. To go from the trailer park to the office suite is extremely rare. And they write books about people that do that. So I understand where you're trying to go. I cut out parts of this because it would make it too long. But girl, come on. You got to get out of your feminist blockade. Okay, you got to expand your horizon, exactly know how people work, and not just how your worldview and your lens sees things. Because you're way off. Even you know you're way off because you don't even practice it. You know, the way you talk is about how you are capped because of the way you're looked and the disadvantages that you have. Tells me exactly that. Look at Oprah. Oprah would love to walk in with pretty privilege and people like her for who she is. The thing is, she's not comfortable with that. She got one guy that she's not married but taken on as a symbol, and that she takes care of the guy because she's a billionaire. But she's not happy. She would rather be the beautiful queen of the ball, because that's what women always want. Women want to be the fairy princess. They want the attention. You've said it yourself. So you do have to do other things. That means you have to settle for your lane and settle for what you can do and work with the cards that you have been dealt and work with the limitations that you have. Even pretty women have limitations. They have less of them, but they have limitations too. Carrie Hilson, anybody? But anyway, that's all I got for the pretty privileged conversation. She's so easy to figure out, man. It's ridiculous. She just is, man. And she's a walking contradiction in terms. That's why I say women think with their vagina and women think with their emotions. And okay, yeah. And with that, this is BGS. I'm gonna jump off here. I'm out, you guys. Peace.